Hey guys, Kellen back here with Inside Out Precision, and I've got a little bit different video for you today. We're not at the shop, I'm not focused so much on shooting, but this past weekend in Vegas, I noticed the lack of preparation that people did physically before they shot. And warming up, stretching, all that stuff is very, very important in archery, just as in any other sport. If you watch any NFL games, any NBA games, if you go to the pregame, if you actually go to the game, those guys are warming up for 45 minutes or an hour before they ever actually start playing the game. And while in archery, obviously we're not running and jumping and all that, so it's not quite as rigorous of a warm up. It's still really important that you get blood flowing to all your shoulder joints and getting your body warmed up to not only prevent injury, but so that you feel loose and flexible at full draw, and those shots will roll smoother. If you don't take the time to warm up and stretch out, especially if you shoot like in a tournament on an early line, for example, one of the kids that I coach, Maya, when we were in Vegas, she shot at 7 a.m. And so we were up at 5:30. We went down to the practice range, and you're fresh out of bed. You haven't been moving around a lot, so everything is pretty stiff. Now she's young; she's only 16, so she's still kind of rubbery. So she wasn't injured at all, but I felt bad as a coach that I didn't take the time with her to kind of stretch out and do this stuff, because I have personally experienced an injury from not warming up. I'd been having some tightness in my shoulder from working out, and I would feel it when I shoot. It wasn't too bad, but I decided to go into work one day early. So I got there about 8 o'clock, and I was going to shoot for an hour or two before we opened. And I just got out of bed. I had, drank a cup of coffee and read some news, and then I just went straight to the shop. And when I picked up my bow, I didn't do any warm-ups. I didn't do any stretching. And on the very first arrow, I got to about right here, and I just heard this snap, crackle, pop right where my clavicle here, or my collarbone, comes into my shoulder joint. And luckily, after a couple MRI or a couple X-rays and appointments with the physical therapist, we determined that I had a little bit of scar tissue and bursitis in there, and that the popping that I heard wasn't, thankfully, any ligaments or tendons, but rather just scar tissue kind of separating. My muscles were really, really tight, and when I started to expand right here, they didn't give way. They just pulled against each other, and they popped that scar tissue. So to avoid that, there are some pretty simple, easy exercises and warm-ups and stretches that you can do. We do these with all of our kids every league before we start shooting, and they'll also help make you stronger. We'll get into it here in a sec, but there's some really basic movements that'll help blood get flowing to that joint and these muscles, and everything will feel better once you start to shoot. So the first thing we do is I always carry this little bit of surgical tubing with me. There's a lot of bow trainers out there on the market, but these work just fine. And so to start out, before I draw the bow, I'll literally just do some real easy reps like this. And you can make it, if you shorten this up a little bit, it'll have a little more tension against it there. But I do this on both sides, and I generally do that for about 30 seconds to a minute on each side. And if you feel a little bit of burn happening, that's actually good, because that means your muscles are working, they're getting blood flowing to them. And you're not going to really tire yourself out doing this, but it's going to get those muscles warmed up. Kind of like doing jumping jacks. It's just, they're not super tiring, but they get your heart rate up a little bit, get that blood flowing. Now in archery, we don't really want our heart rate to spike before we start shooting, but you do want to get those muscles warmed up. So after I do that on both sides, I'm going to take this and I go over my head, stretch and bring it back like so. Come back over, stretch it out, back over my head. And I can feel that even right now. I'm a little sore from the gym the other day, and it feels really good getting those shoulders and back muscles stretched out like that. So I do this for, again, 30 seconds to a minute. Then I jump into a little more traditional stretches. So the first one I do is arm, hand goes down the the top of the back there, and then we're going to pull down on that elbow. So this is going to stretch out your triceps. It's going to stretch out your delts here and your traps. And these are actually all movements that my physical therapist gave me to work on when I had this shoulder issue, in order to avoid it happening again once it healed. And so, this isn't me just spouting random stuff. This is actually coming from a physical therapist. And this actually feels really good. So again, hold each side about 30 seconds to a minute. You can go longer if you want. If you're really sore and stiff, maybe you shot a bunch the day before, feel free to lengthen these movements out. Okay, we're there. The next one is pretty simple. Arm comes across the body, hand is in the down position, and we're gonna hook. So my thumb is pointed down, and I hook and I pull and I twist. And this is really gonna open up your scapula and your rhomboids and really stretch those out. You will feel it here too in your rear delts. Just hook and pull. Again, you wanna hold these for about 45 seconds to a minute, 30 seconds to a minute, somewhere in there. Oh, feels really good. Across the body there. Get that stretched out. And the next thing, and this will actually help, especially if you're a beginning archer, and the muscles that we use for archery are not used in a lot of other things. It's not an explosive movement, so even if you go to the gym and you're used to, throwing weights around, archery is a sustained strength, right? That back tension and everything is a sustained strength. So what you're really looking for is longevity in your strength. So arm circles, and I know this looks silly, but if you put both hands up like you're washing two windows, and you start with small arm circles forward, you're gonna do this for about, so you can see, if I go this way, I'm actually doing circles. I'm not just flapping, we're actually making circles. Do this for about 30 seconds and switch and go backwards. And again, you can see here, it's just little circles. I'm not doing real big ones. We're keeping everything tight. And what this does is it keeps it, you'll feel it, especially in the front and tops of your shoulders there. And all that is blood getting pumped into that shoulder joint. So those muscles are getting warmed up. I'm not really tiring them out. I'm just feeling it. And I can kind of go bigger, stretch things out a little bit. And that is pretty much the routine that I do. Now, if you're looking to get stronger, try and make those arm circles go for 2 minutes or 3 minutes. Even if you're in pretty good shape, you will feel the burn. So again, all these exercises are really key in preventing injury. I make a point to do it every time, especially if it's early in the morning and my body hasn't had all day to kind of be moving around at work or whatever you do on your daily routine. In the morning, generally you're going to be pretty stiff. Those muscles are all contracted and tense. So stretching out, warming up will really, really help you feel better at full draw. I generally like to wait, maybe, after I do all this, I'll give it a 5-minute rest, just let everything kind of calm back down, and then I'll start my shooting. And I really notice a difference when I do that. So I hope that helps you a little bit. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to comment below. We always love feedback. If you have any good exercises or stretches that you like to do, I'd love to hear about them or see them. Please hit the subscribe button, and remember, precision is a decision.